Welcome to the Loaf Podcast. This is a podcast for genuinely good people with a bit of an edge. People who want to help other people, unique people with a unique purpose. Our purpose is to find out what makes people tick, what's held them back and what's pushed them forwards. I'd love this to be as interactive as possible, so if you're watching on YouTube, please have a go in the comments and please read the show notes. Thanks to my sponsors, Verve Estates and Property Management, Darlington's finest estate agents and property managers, Neon Source, which is a sourcing company matching investors to properties, and also The Property Thing, which is the North's finest property networking event with a bit of business chucked in there as well. Thank you so much. Please enjoy. Hello everyone, welcome to the Life of a Fruitcake podcast, The Loaf, and we actually have a fruitcake in session today. Two. She doesn't think she is actually, but we'll see about that. Today, because Hayley Andrews is The Property Thing guest tonight and speaker, we've got Anthony Boyce with us today to help us interview us. So, yeah. Hello, Anthony.
Hello, everyone.
Hello, Hayley.
Hello.
Let's rock. So, I sent you half a dozen questions or so before we started, and you were like that. I've never been asked those questions on a podcast before, so it should be an interesting one.
Definitely going to be interesting.
But the first 10 minutes, I'm just going to say from my point of view, you're a well-respected lady in the property industry. You've got your own networking event, high heels to hard hats.
Hard hats to
hard hats to high heels. And you speak at quite a lot of events. You're off the Telly box and everything with Property Elevator.
Yeah.
I heard you do a chat down at a Blue Bricks event not so long ago, and it was like, yeah, wow. I mean, Anthony, you jumped straight on it, didn't you?
I literally did, yeah. She's like, what are you doing on my shoulders? But no, as soon as you started flashing, sorry, I shouldn't have paused then, the project you were working on, the big historic buildings and, city centres and things like that, I was in awe of it. They were beautiful, beautiful buildings. And we love a bit of that, don't we?
We like a bit of that. I mean, we just thought, well, she's got balls. Let's get her on the Love podcast. Let's get her. Let's see things. So, give us a potted history of you then. In 10 minutes, tell us all about your entrepreneurial journey from being a young'un through school and what you used to get up to, and through to where you are today. Because you've got some serious variety going on.
Yeah, variety is the spice of life, isn't it? So I started out in 2002 in property. I've built a multi-million pound property portfolio. Mm-hmm. I've been named one of the UK's most inspirational female entrepreneurs. Thanks. I am an award-winning investor and developer. I own an award-winning training organisation and network. My portfolio consists of everything from buy-to-lets, serviced accommodation, HMOs, small and large, factories, bars, restaurants, schools, museum I'm doing at the moment, which is the bane of my life, but a very, very nice project to be on. Car parks and all things like that. So I've always been entrepreneurial. I was a bit of a rebel at school. I didn't turn up half the time. My teachers kind of said, you'll be nothing and no one. The first Jaguar XK8 I purchased, I drove past the school gates to wave to the headmaster.
Oh, one of them.
With the hood down. I've always I was very good at school. I enjoyed learning, but school wasn't really for me. I got bored very easily, so became disruptive, and half the time would just jump the wall to go and sell cigarettes for 25p a pot. So I've always kind of been entrepreneurial and a bit of a rebel. I got a good job. I got the grades, so I am intelligent, I guess. I had no issue getting the grades or anything like that. I landed a really good job with good pay, but I never really stayed anywhere. I moved out at 16, so very, very independent. Kind of just jumped from one job to the next, 3 to 6 months, 12 months maximum. I'd learn everything I possibly could from that role and then move on. I knew I needed to do something else for my pension.
What jobs were they, just out of interest, when you first got going? Because sometimes they're completely unrelated. I mean, I dropped out of college to be a pizza delivery boy. So it's like...
Well, I had variety. So I was a qualified football coach.
Wow.
I'm a qualified personal trainer, or was. I don't practice and haven't for a very long time. Qualified beautician. So I had kind of like loads of little side hustles on. My job, my first ever job, I worked at the Molyneux Health and Fitness Club. It was an apprenticeship program. So I got the grades continuing through working as well. I thoroughly enjoyed that. It was a great starter point for me. Recruitment, I'm a data analyst, so I kind of like research areas for hotels to open up and all things like that. So very much like watching people, movement of people, love data. So, yeah.
How old were you when you kind of nicked off from being employed to thinking, I'm just doing that myself now? Or was it like a hybrid merge where you did stuff on the side? Did you always have a side hustle?
So I was employed and self-employed at the same time. So so even when I was employed, I was doing football coaching, I was doing beautician home visits, things like that. I hired a little nail desk at a hairdresser's and was doing that weekends, evenings, and all things like that. So it was kind of like always doing something. So it was employed and entrepreneurial at the same time.
And that's where listening to your journey down at the Blue Bricks event made me think, yeah, she's definitely got some traits of fruitcakiness about it. I mean, well, it's a relentless drive anyway. You know, it's and that kind of that just keeping going the whole time. Did you frustrate your parents with the way that you were?
So my mum and dad are divorced. I'm one of 7, and I'm the youngest.
Right.
So they kind of like got over all of that stuff by the time it got to me. So no, I mean, my mum, I moved out at 16. I absolutely adore my mum, but we're very similar. So I kind of moved out and went my own way, really.
Right. Any of your brothers and sisters got your sort of traits, like entrepreneurialism?
Yeah, so all of them are entrepreneurial. All of them have their own businesses within their own fields, but none of them are in property.
And that part of your journey, is there anything that you wished you'd done differently? Do you wish you'd gone full-time in, you know, like businessy stuff quicker? Or is there any, like, I mean, this whole podcast is about inspiring people who are maybe a little bit stuck, or they're in employment and they want to get out and they want to get into business. And I was just having this conversation with someone an hour ago at this schools event I was at, and you know, like a bit of an entrepreneur's kind of event, and it's like you want to encourage people to go into business if it's their purpose, but it can be quite dangerous. You know, it can be quite you know, you just end up working all of the hours because you're the one that it all falls back on, and you employ people and realise how difficult that can be. And so it's like, in a way, you're encouraging people to do this kind of thing, but it's like, well, you know, is that the right thing to do, especially with the way that the government are now treating entrepreneurs and business people and stuff like that. But yeah, I mean, is there anything you would have done differently, or any really good advice that you give for people who are feeling a bit stuck, or feeling that they're not working to the purpose by being employed and they want to go self-employed? I mean, what do you reckon? Go for a side hustle first, see what you think about it?
I think slow progression is always kind of the best route. It's kind of a do as I say, not as I do type of attitude, isn't it? Because it all comes down to the individual, their skill set, what is it they want to go into, their risk appetite. So it's hard to kind of say, do you know what, you should leave work and go into property full time. And that's not something I'd recommend. It's something that you could, you know, reduce your hours at work, spend some time in property, get a good, decent revenue from property, build that up over time, and then go full-time in property if that's what you wanted to do. And it's kind of the same with business, isn't it? You know, lots of people, and it's very employee mindset, isn't it, to kind of say, do you know what, we're going to go, and I'm an all or nothing person, so I can't believe I'm saying this, but to turn around and say, we're going to hire this shop, we're going to get some employees, and then we're going to go out and find business, is not the way you do it. You generate business, then you fill, obviously, that gap so that you can then grow the business. So I'd say slow progression is probably the best route to go down.
Yeah, inch by inch.
inch by
We've been
inch.
saying that a bit recently, haven't we? We've maybe gone a bit balls out, haven't we, the last few years? And it's
And there's
burned our
nothing wrong
balls.
with that. There's nothing wrong with balls out. You've just got to understand the risks that you're taking. And I think some people very much get caught up in the idea of property instead of with all of the promotional stuff that's out there, the trainings, the gurus and things like that, which are get rich quick schemes, and people kind of buy into that. And actually, no business, whether it's property or any other, is passive. And no business, whether it's property or other, doesn't, it requires your time, it requires capital, it requires input, and it's hard work, and it always gets worse before it gets better. Yeah. And I think a lot of people don't anticipate that, and they give up before they get to the point of that next growth step, which, it takes a hell of a lot of time.
See, I think the barriers to entry to property are just too high. I mean, I had the lady yesterday that I was chatting to about getting into buy-to-let, and of course everyone wants a below market value deal, but then they realise when she's spent money on refurbs, it's way over what she would have spent for a house that was already done on the same street, but she was doing it as SA, and then she was doing it through a saucer and various other stuff, and there was just a few things that I could really pick up on where I could just see that she was making the mistakes that such a lot of people make, and especially when they're a remote investor. Yeah. And I was just able to sort of change it in an hour because, I was actually ringing up to sell her a property that she'd inquired through the estate agents, and her figures, it wasn't stacking up for her. So I said, look, well, these are our figures. These are the actual figures, and it does. And just got chatting to her. And, of course, when you're on an experienced dude chatting to a fairly new person, hadn't been on any courses, nothing like that, which is now wrong with that, but she'd done a lot of research, and she just pummeled my brain for an hour, and I was like, I should now be charging you for this, by the way. This is crazy,
Send
which I never
the
do.
bill.
But like the barriers to entry to property are just so high, whereas the barriers to entry to getting into a side hustle or business are so much lower if you're prepared to do a bit of drop shipping, or you're prepared to do something a bit crafty, or something that is your passion that you can pretty much set up on the side. What are your thoughts on that?
Well, I think getting into business, it's time versus money, isn't it? Like you were saying, Hayley, if you've got the business there, like whether you're a plumber or like me, you do plans, an architect or whatever, there is the ability to trade your time for money. So it is easy to replace your income, isn't it? And do it slowly, and then you build and build and build. But yeah, property, I think, as you've just said, it's the buy-to-let level, you make £200, don't you? 250, maybe 300 tops. How many of them, and how much blood, sweat, and tears do you have to go through before you've got that life-changing amount, and you can then leave? So,
Well, I think with property as well. I mean, from when I first started out, I'm a very different investor to what I am today, and my risk profile changes because I can put. Sometimes I don't need to take the risk. Sometimes I'm prepared to take the risk. And people always say to me, what happens if you lose everything? And I say, I make it again within 2 years. I know what I'm doing now. So it doesn't scare me. I'm not afraid of risk. But if you were to just look at a low-risk strategy with buy-to-lets, if you look at the properties I was purchasing 20 years ago, or even 15 years ago, at maybe, 50, 60,000 pounds, 2-bed terraced houses, 2 bedrooms upstairs, 2 reception rooms downstairs, and the bathroom on the back of the kitchen, those types of properties. They were renting out then at £500 to £550 per calendar month. I've done nothing to those properties other than hold them in my portfolio. They're all in my own personal name from what we were talking about in the car. But if you were to look at the value of those now, they are worth like £140,000, £150,000. I haven't purchased necessarily below market value, although I'm very good at negotiation and always do try and make my money in the buy. I did maybe £2,000 just getting the property fit for purpose, fire alarms, new carpet, repaint. It was cheaper back then to do that as well. I'm pretty sure on the first one we did lining paper as well. We didn't even, replaster. It was lining paper, paint it, so it but fit for the audience that it was intended. If you were to look at those now, they are probably renting out in the region of £950 to £1,100 per calendar month, and they're worth in the region of £130, £150, £160.
It's the time, isn't it? Though that's what you say.
But that's what I mean. You don't have to take risk.
Yeah.
It's about being in the industry for a long period of time, holding those assets, Obviously, they need to cash flow. Obviously, if you're leaving any capital in the deal, you need to understand the return that you're getting. You don't want to be buying necessarily cheap properties. You want to be buying in areas of regeneration, and decent capital appreciation year on year. But you've got the demand and the cash flow and the rental appreciation as well alongside that. And I think a lot of people don't think of it that way. They look at, well, is it money in, money out? What's my return? Am I paying myself back within 2 years? There's nothing wrong with that. But that doesn't mean to say if you're leaving the money in or some capital in that it's a poor investment, because it is cash flow and capital.
No, that makes sense.
We haven't had those capital appreciation sort of.
Oh, I don't know.
I think
We've
it
had
depends
some,
on obviously
but not
where
as
you
much
invest
as you've had
in.
down
Yeah.
there in 20 years.
Yeah.
And this is why I think we're on a piece of elastic behind the rest of the country.
Yeah.
And if I did, because of these really unfair tax rules now, it's like if I disposed of that part of my portfolio that's in my own name, I would be gutted, because I know I'll look back in 5 years' time and the North East is going to do one upwards. I think maybe 15% over the next 5 years, maybe 20%.
It was high. I know Savills has always got that little forecast thing. I'm sure it was like 27 or something like that.
There's always a sunk cost involved with it where you're like, no, don't do that. So do you mind if I ask you, why haven't you ported those across into a limited company then, the ones that are in your own
So
name?
they're owned 50-50 with my husband as well. My only income is from property. So we balance it all out, reinvest everything. So I should have moved them across to a limited company. I haven't. But what I have done instead, because I don't need the income off other parts of the portfolio, is pay down the mortgages.
Yeah.
Safe.
Cool,
And
man.
I'm only leveraged at maybe 51% loan to value across my portfolio. Some of them are up at 75, and there's a couple at 80. But if you were to average it out, it's about 50% loan to value.
Fair play.
A few bits there. Time, so look at it, 10-year horizon rather than tomorrow, isn't it? And I think the one there is, there was two actually. It's not a bad investment, is it, if you've got to leave money in the deal? I think there's this, again, I think it's the course's fault, isn't it, with BRI? You've got to extract everything, and it doesn't need to happen.
I think it depends as well, if you're buying a deal and you're leaving capital in, and your long-term or your 5-year plan is to be financially free, let's say, and you've got to reach, £6,000-7,000 per calendar month passive income, or net income, let's say, instead of passive.
Yeah, passive.
Buying a buy-to-let and leaving £40,000 in the deal is not going to get you there. So it's about, well, what do you want to achieve out of property? What's your entry point, and what is actually your exit? Is property a long-term plan for you? Because there's buying property and holding property, but you can also trade in property, you can also source property, you can also do creative strategies such as rent to rent, you can do assisted sales and things like that. So there's lots of ways you can make money out of property management, estate agency. If you're a compliant, competent sourcing agent, you might as well be a compliant, competent estate agent. If you're an estate agent, off the back of that, your business is likely to get lettings. So you're managing your own portfolio, you might as well manage other people's. So there's lots of ways to make money out of property, and I think people just focus on buy, renovate, rent, refinance, buy, renovate, rent, refinance. And I follow that model myself, but I also look at it from a long-term perspective.
So there's a lot to be said for having a strategy, going an inch wide, mile deep, but there's also a lot to be said for the spin-offs as well, like you said there, and the cash flowing parts of it. So I wish I'd set up an estate agency 7 months ago, Verve Estates. It's going great. The property management side of it is slower. And every time you want to bring someone in for like, I don't know, you want to bring someone in on a decent wage, and you think, oh God, we've got to get another 80, 90 properties on to be able to pay them. And it's like, you feel like sometimes it's 3 steps forward, 2 steps back. Absolutely. But the estate agencies, it was a really good one from the start, because I've got a great business partner in that, Louis Holmes, and he came, it was like buying a business, bringing him on board, because he was self-sustainable, because he was experienced, he had a good, contact base and all of that kind of stuff. And that's now what I want to be more like, and we're getting into the sourcing now. Stuff I wish I'd done 20 years ago. Yeah. But it is what it is, right? The second best time to plant the trees today.
Yeah, from sourcing, if you're an active investor and you're looking to grow your own portfolio with the best will in the world, it's unlikely that you're going to be able to do every deal that you come across. Your money might be tied up while you're, waiting for one to complete. So rather than kind of pass up all of that time you've put into networking, building your contacts, getting into people's little black book and negotiating deals and having deals being brought to you, you might as well source those deals on. They're good, solid deals.
Yeah.
Also, not every deal is going to meet your requirements, but they might meet, a deal that doesn't suit me might actually suit you, or the other way round. And
So are there any courses for people looking out for getting into property or business? Are there any particular courses that you know that are really good for people to get into? Because there's such a lot of bad ones out there that people report in on. Is there any that you think are absolutely solid?
You've put me on the spot there now. I
Well,
mean,
you can have a
obviously
think
mine.
I was going to say, surely there's a plug here.
Sorry, that wasn't alluded. So you do your own mentorship as well?
Yeah, I have a training organisation, and we're across 18 different countries. I've been mentoring
Really?
since 2006.
18 countries?
Yeah.
So,
I've got to say, Daniel Chan, I know him.
Yeah.
He's one of your mentees, so I've got to say hi for him.
Oh,
So.
Oh, thank you.
How many
Mention on a
mentees?
podcast there, Daniel.
Oh, fair play. How many mentees do you have then?
I've probably got about 300
Get
mentees.
out.
I mean,
Right,
they're
fair.
not all active at any one time, and obviously we're talking since 2006.
Is that a monthly subscription now?
No, so I only do 1 or 2 a quarter.
Right.
So I used to do, I've got a database of about 5,000
Right.
because I used to do classrooms of like 300 people. But it took me away from doing what I'm good at, which is buying property. So
That's mad.
I
So-
had to do a balance between the two. So it's not open to everyone. It's selective.
That's
and
us. That's us officially pied there.
Yeah,
I
you're
think.
out.
Yeah, so
You're way too much of a fruitcake to come on.
Right, yeah.
So it's an interview basis, and then I decide who I'm going to take through to a mentorship program.
Right.
And then it's one-on-one, lifetime support. They very much become, under my wing, holding
Right. Yeah,
hands.
hand holding.
Yeah,
That
hand
one.
holding, that one.
So, have you ever been? So when we looked at your chat down at Blue Bricks, we were,
I don't know
thinking.
why I'm so nervous.
Now,
I'm
Well,
just
we-
waiting to see what is written down.
yeah, there's a few fruity ones.
Some of the stuff you sent through to me.
We aren't, by the way, a property podcast in any way, shape, or form. But everyone that's in, most people that are in my world that I know are property people,
related.
and we always end up on that. But the thing is like it's more about what's held you back in the past, what's pushed you forward. Have you ever been talked to in a kind of a legally blonde way where they think little lady comes to site, have you ever had to put anyone right from a tradesman perspective, talking down to you, thinking that you're a bit of a person with an ill-fitting hard hat and high vis, but when you're not, you've been doing, you're the girl who would rod the drains, you're the girl who'll get a hand down with a set of marigolds into the gully. And I've heard some of the stories that you were saying about, getting your sleeves rolled up and getting the job done. Have you ever been talked down to like that? Is that an epidemic? Is that something that spurred you on to bring hard hats to heels?
Yeah.
And that sort of thing?
Yeah, absolutely. I'm more so in the beginning than now, because of course
Because
you
your
have
reputation precedes you now.
Yes.
Mary Poppins with a baseball
not
bat.
always, sometimes, but I think lots of people have underestimated me in my life, and that's fueled me rather than held me back. I very much use things like that as a stepladder, criticism and everything, to kind of just step up and walk over it. I'm not one to really dwell on other people's opinion of me. Being a female in the industry when I first started out was extremely difficult, especially being petite, and I was attractive back then as well.
You don't speak too bad. Come on.
Come on, you can share the compliments. No, but being a young female in the property industry was very difficult. And of course, whether that was just navigating people's perception of me, proving my worth, having to be 10 times better, more successful, stronger, bigger balls, as you said, just to kind of get the same recognition. But I handle conflict very well. I handle the site guys very well. I do get my hands dirty. I would work as hard as anyone else on site. When I first started out, I would be rodding drains and dealing with that type of shit, stripping walls, filling skips, collecting materials, project managing, finding my own deals, pulling the trades together. I did all of it. So I think that gave me a level of respect for what they were doing, but also they respected me for, not being just a prim and proper little girl that's standing there telling people what to do. I'm a hard worker, I'm a grafter. And if I expect someone else to do it, I'd be prepared to do it myself.
Yeah. So when you got on the TV, how did that happen?
Property TV originally reached out to me, Michael Hammond, to be on Property Question Time. That's where I started. I met John Howard. He was one of the guests when I was with Stephen Galpin and we were doing a show. And he had Property Elevator at the time. And he asked if I wanted to be part of the show. I said I'd never actually watched the show at the time, so I watched it, had a look at it, really liked the concept, went and met the guys. They loved me, and the rest is history.
Good stuff. So explain it to us. It's like skinning people's deals alive and seeing who they are, seeing what they're made of. And
it's not that brutal.
Do you chuck your own money in then, or is it a mix of your own money and investor money, or is it all your own cash that you've got to bash into them? So
it'll be all Roma's.
We use Well, Roma's fine because they do the debt and we do the equity.
Right.
So they're taking first charge over the assets and all things like that. So the risk is really with us. But yes, I do use my own capital.
And what's the average size deal on there? What are the types of deals that people are bringing on, like commercial conversions to flats and that? John Howard loves all that stuff, doesn't he?
Yeah, so John Howard's very much high rise. He does a lot of ground up developments. Then you've got me and Ranjan that are very much commercial, to residential, a lot of PD. I obviously specialise in listed buildings as well and do a lot of commercial asset management. Then you've got Nicholas who does, we all do a bit of everything really. We all do a bit of everything.
You mentioned listed buildings there. Actually, before we get into that, so is it a case of like 10 people come in, you've all got deals, some of them won't get invested in at all, and you might have 10 people and no one gets invested in if the deals don't stack? I guess, that's always going to happen, isn't it? But you might end up investing potentially in all 10, or...
Yeah, I mean, obviously it comes down to capital available, although I've never not been able to find money for a deal. I'm not just going to throw millions into a deal. So what happens is people apply to be part of the show. We get around 100 applicants that come through. That gets taken down to 18. So they get interviewed by production. We have nothing to do with what deals come through. We have no idea. Some fruitcakes come through, some very good deals come through. There's some entertainment value there, I guess, as well. But majority of the stuff that come through will be HMO conversions, commercial to residential, large factories that are being converted into flats, example. Of commercial and building off the back and all things like that. So there's a bit of everything. We've had hotels with forward funding and a travel lodge in there, and we've had loads of different stuff. We've had a yoga studio. She wanted to buy a commercial unit to run her well-being retreat type of thing, and that was an interesting one, and she was great actually. She had amazing energy about her.
I guess it's good learning for you as well, you know, like seeing all of these extra strategies and stuff that you might not have thought about coming to the fore. Have you ever been burned out?
Burned out?
Yeah.
Yeah, I have.
And how long did that last, and how did you get out of it, and what methods and techniques do you use for sort of relaxation?
So I spent years of not sleeping and working stupid hours, maybe 1 or 2 hours a night. That would be 30 minutes here or there. Constantly pushing myself, always kind of finding something else to do, never really slowing down. And I just thought maybe I was a robot, maybe I don't need sleep, or maybe I don't need to rest like normal people, and and really kind of glamorized it, I guess, which was the wrong thing to do. And then I just kind of hit burnout.
Did you have to take time out?
I didn't take time out. I stepped back. Luckily, I was in a position where I'd got good people around me, and I was able to do that without it really having a massive negative impact. I started working on my sleep, worked on my diet, exercise, meditation, grounding, affirmations, all things like that, really trying to slow my brain down more than anything else. It wasn't because I was dictated to or needed to do the things. It was all down to me, putting that pressure on myself to just be better, do more all the time.
Yeah. Did you seek out any kind of mentorship with that, or do you have a mentor yourself?
I don't have a mentor, actually.
Have you ever had anyone that you could go to for... Well, I guess you've got a few fairly kind of hard-hitting, big hitters around you. People like Ranjan, I keep wanting to call him Ranjan Bhattibhai, I wouldn't call him that. Ranjan Bhattacharya and people like that. You've and John Howard and people like that. Can you reach out to those people on a daily basis?
Yeah, I can reach out to those people. I've got some really good people in my network that I can just call up on and have a conversation with, and they just get it, and understand all of the things that I might be experiencing, because they're 10 steps ahead of me.
It's fine if the answer to this one is, nothing. But what annoys you about yourself? What would you change about yourself if you could?
I don't think I'd change anything particularly about myself. Everything about me, whether I like it or not, makes up who I am.
Yeah.
And you like that or you don't. And I would never apologise for it either.
Yeah, you seem to have good timekeeping and all of that kind of stuff.
Yeah, I'm super organised.
I'm looking for holes in this woman. You know
No,
what I mean?
no,
Where's the holes in your game?
I am super organised. I hold myself accountable. I don't make excuses. If I mess up, which I do, I take responsibility for that. There are times I'll rock in a corner, as we were talking earlier, and there's times I kind of say, why do I do this? 9 till 5 job would be so much easier. Earning $100,000 a year and just switching off at 5 o'clock every night and having every weekend off, and but it's not me.
Yeah,
it's not me. So I guess if I wouldn't change this about myself, but I'd like to be able to just say, be happy, and say I am happy, but be content without wanting to pull myself forward.
Yeah. Do you find
but then I like that about myself as well. So it's strange.
Yeah. Do you mind me asking how old you are?
No. Yeah, I do actually.
Oh, do
you should
you
never
really?
ask a
25,
woman
she's
over
25.
40 how old she is.
Right. Okay. So 40 something. Yeah. Do you find that the drive slows down? And there's nothing wrong with this, but do you find that the drive to constantly achieve more is slowing down within yourself as you advance past 40 and kind of go, okay, and no. Okay.
No, and I guess that's kind of like it's a curse but also a gift being an entrepreneur, isn't it? Because you're always wanting to move forward, you're always wanting to learn something else, so you always have great ideas that and some really bad ones as well, but you're always kind of up at 2 o'clock in the morning writing down what you've just dreamt about or thought about, so
Definitely.
your brain never stops, really. I don't think that there is an end.
Addicted to chaos almost, isn't it?
Yeah,
It's
organised
like
chaos, but chaos.
There's a lot of firefighting, but it's almost like you thrive on that, isn't it, in a way?
But you get sick of herding cats after a while.
You do, but you wouldn't have it any other way, would you?
No, yes.
I guess it depends what you're in at the time. On what a few years ago, I had some really challenging projects on, and I was kind of like, I don't need to do this anymore. It's not. Why
so
do I do it?
So you started a museum instead. I like
and
that.
And every year I kind of say, well, I can start slowing down, or I'll start slowing down, and then every year I do something more challenging. I guess the nice thing of where I am now is it's not. I make money, but it's not about the money. Yeah. And it's more about, how that particular deal grows me as an individual. And every single deal I do is different. So I definitely like challenging myself.
Yeah. So car parks.
Yeah,
That seems to be a great strategy.
it's an amazing strategy.
Yeah, just so low maintenance, just collect the money out of the machines,
Yeah.
all of that kind of stuff.
We don't even have to do that, but
I heard you jingling with your bag earlier.
honestly, if you go
too
to my
peasy?
boot, I've probably got about £3,000 worth of pound coins in my boot.
Right, fair play.
But yeah, no, I
Curry's
mean,
on you
car
later.
parks was something. It was a strategy that just came about as the property that I was purchasing, and I'll talk about it tonight as well.
Yeah.
But I'd actually purchased a commercial property where we did asset management. So I purchased it out of liquidation, had a tenant lined up, good solid covenant, did a light refurb. They actually paid for it as well as part of their fit out and set up, refinanced, pulled actually all of my capital out, but had this land on the side, which most people had looked at as a development. But I did a feasibility. I'm a data freak. You know, I watch people, how many they spend, what's the average footfall, all things like that. And one of the things that I identified in looking in this particular area was parking. So I looked at permits, I looked at lending on that, I looked at the pay and display, and I ended up doing a mixture of both.
All right.
But I mean, that car park, it was £6,000,
Yeah, how many
Yeah.
spaces?
120.
No way,
Yeah.
that is massive.
Yeah, not
Right,
really.
yeah.
Well, it's actually it's a split level car park. So you've got the Priory House, the front of the car park, which belongs to that building. Then that is 2 buildings, so it goes another building behind. You've got the top car park, and then it drops down to what used to be the bowling fields, and that again is
Wow.
Was that hard standing already then, or was there a lot of ecology problems with obviously tarmacking the whole thing? Or?
No, we haven't tarmacked it, so we just put that gravel stuff down
Right, okay.
and whacker plated
Yeah.
it. It's a very kind of, the top bit is tarmacked, but the parking company that take care of, so we're with Parking Eye on that one.
Oh, I hate them.
Yeah,
I'm gonna say,
yeah.
Not being able to sleep for more than 2 hours at a service station when you might be knackered and then you keep driving. I
Never
think
been
people-
to sleep in a service station. This is a
people die
problem you
because
need to
of-
see a doctor about.
People die because of Parking Eye. In fact, Parking Eye have turned me into a dogging snoozer. So when I'm coming back from an event, I mean, Anthony will tell you, I always get knackered by 10, 11 o'clock at night.
He is absolutely
sometimes
zero
has to
crack.
drive my car back. Yeah, I just go to sleep and fart a bit, don't I? And you then go onto the rumble strips and scream like a twat when he gets bored. But no, I think Parking Eye people die. It's like simple as that because... you know, if you can't, you know,
Well, we're in a town centre, then
yeah, no,
but
that's
it's
fine.
not.
No, I'm cool with your Parking Eye.
Yeah.
They're an absolute rubbish.
But they actually, from a car parking, like from a business perspective, their model is, of course, on penalties.
I was going to say the fines.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So it's all, is it VPN video, pay and display via card app, and then you can pay as well by cash. All of the revenue comes to me,
Great.
other than
The fines.
the fines.
Oh, good stuff.
Yeah, so it's actually completely hands
So,
off.
Wealth Dynamics, Mrs.
Yeah.
What are you?
So I'm a Star supporter. Yeah. Of which I think if I was to do it again now, because I did that maybe 12 years ago, maybe a bit longer, maybe a bit more. I'm not sure, but it was over a decade ago. I think if I was to do it now, I'm probably more of a supporter and a deal kind of maker.
Right, fair play. Have you done a Myers-Briggs?
I have. I think I might have been a star, but I cannot remember.
Probably sausage.
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 Yeah. Mincer as
Sausage
well.
Star.
So, what do you like with boundaries? So, when I first heard you chat, I thought she's a woman with boundaries.
Where are we
you don't-
going
you
here?
don't
Sorry.
mess with her.
I know. What type of boundaries are we talking about?
I've
Fences. Are
felt
we talking about?
that since Anthony recruited you to come up to TPT, and I've like needed stuff at all kinds of times of nights and day. You've always been on the end of a WhatsApp and having a laugh and all of that kind of stuff, and you know.
That's because you're the only person awake when I am in the morning.
Yeah, we
that's
both
why.
up at like 4 o'clock in the morning like a pair of fruitcakes. But I always do get permission, like, do you put your phone on silent through the night? Is it okay if I just message you stuff and you can pick it up when you want? And you've been like, you know, then I send a message at say 4 a.m. and you're getting back to me. I'm like, oh shit, I've woken her up. And it's like, no, I'm up.
Yeah.
Mad in it. But that's the way that you've obviously got a lot of whirring through your head. But I've been on magnesium for a bit now, trying to get better sleep and stuff like that, which apparently, I'm like, this stuff doesn't work. It's like, no, you've got to take it for a month.
You should try it.
I'm very impatient. Aura ring.
Yeah.
Right.
So it's kind of like sleep. It monitors your sleep patterns,
Tracker,
but
yeah.
it tells you what to do through the day.
All right. Okay. Generally, I'm knackered by about 2 o'clock, have an hour's snooze, then I'm in bed by 10, and then I'm up at 1:30, 2, and then might be back off at 5 for an hour. Yeah, honestly, it's crazy. I do need to sort that out, big time.
Yeah.
What's your keeping like?
Sleep like a baby.
Yeah.
Nothing goes on upstairs anymore.
In your head?
In your head or your bed?
A bit of both. I've been married a long time.
So I haven't got my glasses today, and I can't read my own bloody writing. So, yeah, wealth dynamic. Just explain that to me again. What you were? You were a staff supporter, right? And what does that mean?
So I can't remember now. It was so long ago, but it really is. I mean, I am much more of a supporter. So it's really just putting people on the platforms, supporting them to do the best, be the best they possibly can. I get a great deal of satisfaction out of that. And I think that's where the mentoring actually comes in. I enjoy doing that. I like starting at the beginning and helping people, build their business and that.
Good stuff. Have you ever thought, do you know what? I'm actually in this shit now. Or have you ever thought, why the hell did I do that project? Have you ever been where you feel helpless? Have you ever been in that situation where you're like, why the fuck did I take that project on there?
I've been in a situation where I've said that, but I've never felt helpless. I think there's always something we can do. I've never been a damsel in distress. There's a way around everything. There's always a solution. So if I'm ever feeling that way, I kind of switch my mindset to start thinking about, well, what's the way out, rather than focusing on feeling stuck or feeling helpless. But yeah, I mean, there's loads of situations. I mean, I've exchanged on projects where I haven't had the money to complete. I've put non-refundable holding payments down on large projects, which means it's retained to me for a certain period of time, and lost that money and not been able to complete. There's quite a lot of these not being able to complete. Well, actually, no, there's only 2. But I mean, there are lots of situations where I thought, why did I do that? But actually, before I've done that, I've already understood, the risk I'm taking. So I wouldn't change anything. Like on that deal where I put a retainer down, and I spent maybe £60,000 to £70,000 doing due diligence. That's a lot of money. So we're in like £170,000, and then I wasn't able to actually end up purchasing that asset at the end. So, but it was worth me doing that to keep it, so that no one else could actually get it during the time I was able to do the due diligence. So, and actually, they all come back round eventually.
Well, yeah,
So,
as a wealthy man once said to me as I was admiring his Range Rover, he's like, Paul, just go and buy yourself one and make the next man pay for it. And I thought, actually, yeah, because you get this kind of, if you do spend a lot of money on something, or you lose money on something, or you end up in a situation where the taxman's like, yeah, we'll take most of your wages off you, and that, it makes you then move into something else and think, well, if I'm detracted by that, I've now got to make that back up, and how am I going to do that? And that, they can be sometimes the best pivot points, in every adversity lies the seed of a greater benefit is my favourite expression. Yeah. And, sometimes, life throws shit at you, you plant seeds in it and off you crack again and think, that was the best bit of shit that's ever been thrown at me.
Yeah. I mean, out of every challenge that has ever come into my life, there's always been a real positive out of it. I genuinely believe in myself and my ability to come up with the answer. Yeah. And sometimes that takes longer than, others. And sometimes it takes a little bit more effort and actually really thinking, at what point is this going to change sometimes? But I've never not delivered. So I guess I just believe in myself I do believe in myself. Yeah. I know that if there's an answer out there, I will find it, and I won't stop until I do. So that type of person.
You're relentless. Do you write your goals down?
Yeah.
Are you into all of that kind of stuff? And what, Rich Dad, Poor Dad and all that kind of stuff, are we going to have the standard answer, or is there anything, and there's nothing wrong with that. I think Rich Dad, Poor Dad has served a lot of people and got people off the bottom.
Yeah.
Maybe you should do a Rich Mum, Poor Mum.
Yeah.
But is there any books that have really stood out to you, ahead of any others that you would recommend that everyone wanting to get into a bit of business and entrepreneurship should follow?
Yeah, there's a few. I love reading as well, so I read lots of books.
Audible at all your podcasts on the road?
Bit of both, actually. I do like a physical book. I actually still buy books. My house is full of books. But I do listen to a lot of podcasts, a lot of audio.
Which books have meant the most
so
to you?
I would say my all-time favourite is The Slight Edge. Right. It's very much. And then to follow that, The Compound Effect. They are probably my favourite too.
Are they Priestley, is it?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Jeff Olson.
So at the moment, you weren't wanting to talk about one particular project because you were just going to exchange on it. Was it this week or is it next week?
It's supposed to be this week.
Right, okay.
It's unlikely to happen now.
Right, okay.
But we're probably looking at next week.
And,
it's definitely going to be at some point in February.
Am I going to get told off for asking you about it? Can you tell us anything about that?
No.
No? Fair enough.
Just make it up. Is it a Wendy house in a garden or something? Yeah,
Polly Pocket.
A bit bigger than that. So, Sir Anthony, have you got any final questions for Hayley?
On the spot there. I didn't know we were coming to an end. At the moment, no. Carry on.
Yeah, fair play. So, property thing tonight. Do you ever get that? Did I ask you about imposter syndrome and stuff like that? Do you ever get that, or do you ever get like nerves before events and things like that? And how do you do it? You just crack on, don't you?
I do actually get nervous, and a lot of people don't expect it from me. Public speaking and standing on stages and doing all of that type of stuff and TV was never really something that I wanted to do. It just came as a result of the success that I was having. So I do, and I used to actually really badly suffer from nerves.
Right.
Performing in anything, so even when I was younger and doing sports and figure skating or performing and things like that, I always suffered with my nerves, but I tend to work better under pressure, I think, so I always managed to kind of get over them. But public speaking, I used to hate it. I've got.
You do a lot now, so you must be getting used to it. Yeah.
But I still get nervous before the TV stuff and that I don't. And of course, when I'm talking content or anything like that. But when I'm talking about myself, I do get quite nervous because I'm quite a private person. And then all of a sudden, I'm on loads of podcasts and people are asking me super personal questions.
I haven't got on the personal ones yet. No.
So it kind of, I've had to get used to that, I guess.
So the kids of today, youth of today,
yeah.
What are they reading apart from those books there? What avenues should they go down? I mean, I often tell the story about how they chatted to school and asked, the crowd of 250, how many of you want to get into entrepreneurship and business? And bearing in mind, about 50% of the parents of the school were in business. And only 3% of the students put their hands up, and I was really surprised at that. And it's like, so how do we change that? Like, or if people are wanting to get into business, what steps would you tell them to take? Like, which books to read? Because it's something over time, isn't it, to happen for them? Like, I bought a book called 4 Wheels to a Fortune when I was at school because I just knew there was something different for me. That academics wasn't for me, and then that led me on to a book called The Midas Method. So, like your, Slight Edge and Compound Effect and stuff like that. Any books that you would recommend for the youth of today apart from the stuff we've mentioned?
Yeah,
and podcasts that you follow that you think would be really good for young'uns coming up?
It's hard, isn't it, for children? And I actually sit on, I'm a governor across 9 different schools, academies. So I do lots of, motivational speaking and talking about entrepreneurship and things like that with the kids in school. And I think it's very much the mindset, and it's very much driven into them at school that you get your grades, you go to college, go to university, you get a job. Entrepreneurship is not something that's pushed out. Well, it's definitely not in government schools. Maybe a little bit more in it's public, private schools, isn't it? But
I think schools teach you to be compliant, don't they? Because you need to be compliant. You need to file into lessons and do what you need to do, and there's a lot to be said for that, of course. But like, what could we do more for the, especially the neurodivergent kids, the kids that aren't responding very well to the normal education system? Like, what can we do to sort of help those kids? How do you be a governor of 9 schools and do all of the rest of the stuff you do? That can't take you very long.
That's not the only ones that I sit on loads of different boards.
Because you're like a heritage, you sit on heritage boards as well, and you let it slip with that one. That although you are helpful and that you enjoy it and you've got a role to play, you also get to know quite a lot about heritage buildings that might be coming up for development, etc. Yeah.
There is method in everything I do.
Mm-hmm.
Business is about relationships.
Mm-hmm.
You have to give as well for that.
Mm-hmm.
So it is genuine relationships that I've built over time, and I've committed time and money. But my most valuable thing is time. And so I love doing what I'm doing. I love the boards that I sit on, and they're all kind of like with the children. I started on the school that I used to go to. To go back and say, do you know what, it doesn't matter if you don't fit the normal box, or you don't want to go to college, or you don't want to, that doesn't necessarily mean that you're not intelligent or that you can't be successful. In fact, majority of the people that work for me are degree educated and a lot more academically intelligent than I am, but I'm paying their wages. So actually entrepreneurship allows people that don't fit in that box to actually still be successful. Everybody has something within them, and everybody has a skill. You've just got to keep trying and trying and trying until you find that thing that sparks you. When you're sparked with passion, the journey is just so much easier.
Yeah.
Well, it's not easy, but the goal is visible. You can see what you want to achieve. You know what path you've got to take, and it's much easier to get there, because when it does get hard, you know why you're doing it, and it keeps you on track.
My daughter was wanting to go to Northumbria University or Manchester, and I was like, well, she was like, how do I decide? And I was like, imagine that you're there on your bed in Newcastle at Northumbria Uni, and imagine how much you regret not going to Manchester, and then sit in Manchester in your imagination and feel the level of regret of not having gone to Northumbria just because it's closer to home, etc., etc. And she went Manchester straight away. And I've had it today where I've been contacted by a guy who I'd been helping in school choosing his degree, and I'm like, oh my God, I didn't even go to university. And he's saying, do I go here and get sponsored on a degree and get paid 30 grand a year but live in London, or do I go to Northumbria and do entrepreneurial business? And I was like, I want to help, but you kind of can't put that on me. That is absolutely your decision. But, think about your side hustle and think about whether you could use that in your dissertation while you're up at the entrepreneur. I didn't even know you could do an entrepreneurial business degree necessarily until about a year ago, when it turned out someone that worked for me had done it. And he wasn't entrepreneurial in any way, shape or form, really. But it's like, oh my God, I could persuade this guy at this moment in time to do that, and that's him marrying someone different, for example, a different set of friends at university. So it's quite, when people ring you and ask you that kind of advice, it's quite a big thing. And when you're mentoring people and stuff like that, go in one direction or another. And it's I found that to be quite profound, where I wanted to give him all of my feedback, but I didn't want him to make a decision just based on my feedback, like go and speak to other people about it. But actually, I really feel, because he is a natural little entrepreneur, that he should go to that uni. But it's like, it's a big thing, isn't it, just for one person?
And I think being a mentor isn't about telling people what they should do. It's about being a soundboard for them to recognise what the best option for them is. putting the question back to them, looking at the pros and cons. Well, how does that make you feel? What does your life look like if you go down that route? And actually, I think we put, especially children, and school, we put so much pressure on them having to have all of the answers right now. And actually, majority of the people that do go to university end up doing an entirely different career to what they're educated in anyway.
Yeah, absolutely.
So I think everything happens for a reason. No choice that you make is the wrong choice, because it either shows you the path you should be on or that you've got to go in a different direction. So I think it's just helping people to understand that, showing them the different routes that they could take, but also reassuring them that actually, regardless of which way you go, you're always going to end up where you need to be.
So I was in a school foyer the other day, and I heard like a sniffle next to me, and I turned around. This young lass sat there. She's 16 years old. She looked a bit younger than that, actually. And I said, "Are you okay?" And she said, "I've just failed my mocks."
Shame.
And I was like, "All right, how badly?" And she went, "Well, I got 2% out of 200." And I was like, "Okay, so that is a low fail. Like, and what's taking you to that point?" And I thought, wow, I might have 5-7 minutes now to talk to this girl. And I said, "Look, before I say anything, I just need you to know that that was me at school, right? I wasn't that bad, but, I just said, look, that was me at school. I wasn't academic at all. Yeah. And, I'm here to help kids in an entrepreneurial business kind of capacity. And, some people would deem that I've done quite well. And you could just be the best of what you're passionate about in the town. You could be, have you got any other passions that, because I said, could you get from, 2% to, a pass in the few months that you've now got till your real exams? And I said, why are you in that situation? She said, well, I only do 2 hours a week because I can't sit still. I can't, concentrate and all of that kind of stuff. And I thought, there's got to be something. There's got to be something that, because she might have I just got the feeling that she'd written her life off, already.
But that's
she
society
didn't have
telling
any.
her.
Yeah, she didn't have any of that. I mean, I wish I could take a bit of you and implant that to let it grow inside that girl type of thing. Yeah, I hope so, because so many people do end up in a dead end job because they didn't do well at school. But I was, not academically bright at school, but I knew there was something different in business, and I just wish it could be sort of implanted in them a bit more. And that's part of the schools thing that we're doing, is like, trying to get more mentors into schools to do chats, to say, look, it's fine. We don't want to go, it's fine if you don't do well at school, but we want to say, if you aren't doing well at school, it's fine to dream about business or something else, or,
I think the best bit of advice you can give to kids these days is really just outperform your own expectations of yourself. Don't think about what other people are doing. Focus on your own grass, water that. A fail isn't a fail unless you actually stop, at the end of the day.
See, she got up, walked out, got picked up, and I thought, I wonder whether what I said to her there has made any difference whatsoever, or what can you say? I mean, I don't know. I did actually recommend a couple of books to her, but she's 16. Is she gonna Google them?
Read that.
Who moved my cheese? Yeah.
Who moved my cheese? Really short book, great for kids, and it's all about concept of solving problems.
Cool.
She may have failed at 2%, but actually, there's another angle, and there's always another angle. So it's about finding that cheese
and using that as a launch pad. Like, because I had a bit of a self-worth thing at school. I was like, why is everyone can read the book and get an A or a B the next day, and I'm grafting on and only getting a C? It's like frustrating that, but it also makes you think that level of it feels like an injustice, and injustice can push you on to do other things, because you want that validation of driving past your school in a XK or whatever. Cool. Any final thoughts from yourself, Sir Anthony?
Well, just with what you were saying there, I mean, my kids are 14 now. How are you meant to have your life worked out at that point? It's odd, isn't it? And like you're saying there, that young lass, she's probably going to be one of them people who actually learns better on the job. So when you leave school and you actually figure stuff out, you fall into whatever you like, don't you? You'd be better doing an apprenticeship. Would everybody be better doing apprenticeships? I don't know.
So.
Nowadays, you just saddled with a load of debt when you come out of university. It costs a lot more. Or it's your parents that end up paying for it when they go on these trips to Manchester for 2-3 years.
So when I left my school to go to a Darling college, like my grades just got worse. And I had to ask my dad to send me back to that school. And then I was behind a term and still only got 1 A level anyway. But I knew I needed that discipline from my old school. And but then so although the teachers were more easygoing at Darlington College and all of that kind of stuff, I didn't respond well to that. I needed that sort of discipline to get cracked down. And so, you know, when people do leave and go on an apprenticeships, is it necessarily I suppose they're going to a more creative environment where they're doing stuff more with the hands and maybe earning a bit of money and
that's the main one, isn't it? Earning while you're learning. That's to me, that's the good bit.
Yeah.
You're learning on the job, because I think when you come out of, if you've just been educated all of that time, you come out at what, 21, is it?
You become a politician.
You come out into the real world. You've never maybe had a job, and you're pretty useless, aren't you? When you find your first role, at least you kind of doing things. You're learning how the world works as you're educating yourself as well.
I think every job I've ever done has actually led to the skill set that I have today. So I don't think you can go far wrong. I mean, there's nothing wrong with education. There's nothing wrong with going and getting on the job training type of thing. It's whatever suits the individual. Some people thrive in an academic arena. Some people don't. That doesn't mean one is intelligent and the other isn't. And I think that needs to be instilled in children a lot more, that actually this is one way of measuring intelligence. There's so many other ways, and actually just because you get 2% on your grades, it doesn't mean that you're stupid. It just means that that's not the way that you perform. There's lots of other ways you can do it.
Cool. So Hayley Andrews, thank you so much for being on. You've done very well. So that is now your fruitcake.
Thank you.
You're in the club. You've been such a good lass. There's some Wensleydale cheese to go with it as well.
Thank you very much.
Fair play. Thank you so much, everyone. Hope you enjoyed the episode.